and woman
has found a need to communicate, to express, to plaster his proclamations across the walls of his town. He
or she
made strange, scary scribbles that imitate sound, silently scriven from their pages of papyrus. But as time moved on, as civilization advanced, more people were needed to decipher these symbols, so the push for mass literacy began. It was time for humanity to visit Letter People Land.
Come and meet the letter people, come and visit the family. Words are made of letter people, A, B, C, D, follow me.
Educators and institutions across the globe have toyed with various methods of teaching children how to decipher those strange symbols we call the written language. In 1972, Elaine Rice Wyman and Rita Friedman utilized a technique I call the fuck it, let's use puppets method. This is a very common procedure in children's edutainment, as most kids are prone to listen to an authority figure that happens to be mostly felt and yarn. Perhaps it is because they are secretly terrified of these soft creatures, or terrified of the adults who parade around with effigies over parts of their bodies.
Ron, they were looking at some dirty pictures and they wanted me to look too.
The children laugh and obey the puppets because they do not want to anger their googly-eyed tormentors. Or maybe they just think the puppets are cute and relatable. Either way, this bit of psychological abomination brought us the Letter People. For those of you not familiar with this series, The Letter People must sound like some strange 70s low-budget pseudo-horror film about a cult of misfits. You're almost correct in your assumption, but rather than being shown in dark theaters and creepy drive-ins, this circus of psychedelia was broadcast on PBS stations across the country, originating from KETC in St. Louis. As you may notice from this footage, every letter is represented by a strange and rather crude-looking puppet with associated sounds like munchy mouth and wonderful wink. The consonants are men and the vowels are women, because apparently women are two-faced and confusing to the mostly male population. Yet I always wondered why Mr. Y wasn't hermaphrodite or androgynous. At least the girls would have one more character to choose from when dressing up for the school's Letter People pageant. Oh yeah, we dressed as letter people. Even though the show was on for only 2 years in the 1970s, it was on syndication throughout the 80s and early 90s, so people in my generation could experience the Letter People firsthand. Just imagine that kid in the 80s confusion when he heard that Mr. T was a letter person.
The name is Mr. T. First name is Mr., middle name is that period, last name is T.
Back in the day, we were also issued a series of classroom books. I actually have one of those suckers right here. Alpha Land. Not to be confused with various generic sci-fi novels. It is a simple book with simple words, with simple plots for simple minds. And it contains pictures like this. That's right, Mr. L, Mr. S, and Mr. D were very influential here. You can see that all the letter people have a very dynamic and often surreal appearance. What is going on with Miss E? Is she doomed to walk the earth as a contortionist or an upside-down hunchback? And Mr. R is frightening. He looks like the Terminator if the Terminator had a brain full of rubber bands that were constantly spilling out. The stories involve scenarios like Mr. B receiving a gift. Is it a ball? It is not a ball. It is flat. A ball is not flat. Therefore, Socrates is not a ball. The book also contains gems like this. Miss O is in the bus. Miss O jumps up and up and up. Miss O will not sit still. Miss O lifts the parallelogram. The parallelogram falls on Miss O's hand. Miss O sits still. Didn't we accomplish a lot there? What do you mean you'd rather run with Dick and Jane? Dick never got accused of domestic abuse. Slaps. Mr. V slaps. Mr. V is bad. Did Mr. V stop? I can stop him. It ends up Mr. V was actually just clapping to music. Or so Miss O claims. She's always in a state of surprise and shock, so who can tell when she's lying? How many episodes of Cops do you know that end like this? You may have noticed by now that this reading program has its shortcomings. While it stresses phonics to a heavy degree, it does not teach any actual language skills. But that is okay, because most kids who watch this program already know how to read. How else would they have found Letter People Land and not wandered into something terrible like a slaughterhouse or Raleigh, North Carolina? And as I mentioned before, a large part of this program's success is the "oh my god, puppets" factor. With the popularity of this program, you might be wondering why it hasn't been revamped or resurrected. Well, it was in the early 90s, and it was gut-wrenchingly awful. The characters were redesigned and suffered from 90s-itis, a disease that inflicts bland political correctness and sucks the fun from your sunshine. For example, Mr. X was no longer all wrong, he was different. That kid in the corner, twisting her head around and vomiting blood, is not all wrong, or an abomination of nature, or possessed by the devil. She is different, and she shall be respected as such. Also, the new Letter People look like Pit-Pat from Mr. Show.
Pit-Pat! A magical pansexual, non-threatening spokes thing!
Junk food references were removed from the new characters. Cotton candy became Colossal Cap. Delicious donuts became Dazzling Dance. Lemon lollipops became Longest Laugh. And Violet Velvet Vest became Vegetable Vest. Because too many kids were getting fat from eating Velvet Vest, it was time somebody took a stand. Personalities were also altered. The rough and rude Mr. R devolved from ripping rubber bands to rainbow ribbons. And Mr. B changed from beautiful buttons to boring benign beige bourgeoisie. They too had classroom songs and books. That title does not match that picture. That's better. On the sunny side, at least this drudgery did not have a television series. Speaking of television series, we'll take a closer look at the Letter People show next time.
My friend Jack eats sugar lump.
Treat her right, treat your mother right. Treat her right, treat her right.
Mother, there is no other like mother. So treat her right.